Enlightenment is often held out as something we can get. Sometimes people feel like if they just have certain experiences, then they are enlightened. But nobody lives in an unusual, altered state all the time. In fact, we move in and out of states of being more awakened or less awakened. These are not experiences that happen only to figures like Mother Teresa or the Buddha. These are experiences that happen to everyone. When we think about the brain, we can look at the areas that help us determine which things in our lives are particularly important or intense. A lot of people think that gaining knowledge about the world somehow detracts from its beauty. It is quite the opposite. The more we understand, the more we can appreciate, and the more we can find wonder and awe. We tend to divide enlightenment into two basic ideas. The first is what is usually called the small E enlightenment experience. These are the kinds of moments people have, like a sudden epiphany about how to resolve something they have been working on for a long time, when they suddenly understand things in a different way for the first time. The big E experiences, on the other hand, are usually life-changing. They are mind-blowing. They change everything about the way a person thinks about the world, about life, about death, and about spirituality. They change everything about who that person is. When we have these profound moments of awakening, the activity tends to spike within an area of the brain called the limbic system. Think of this as our brain's emotional core. Specifically, the amygdala and the hippocampus light up, the very regions that process our deepest emotions and form our most significant memories. They activate strongly when something truly important happens, essentially stamping the experience into our consciousness as a life-altering event. It's the brain's way of saying, pay attention. This matters. Another core element of these experiences is a feeling of profound unity, connectedness, and oneness. The boundaries we normally perceive between ourselves and the world around us seem to dissolve, leading to a sense of being part of a much larger, interconnected whole. So, how does the brain produce such a radical shift in perception? The answer may lie in an area called the parietal lobe, located toward the back of the brain. This region acts like a neural cartographer. It normally takes in all of our sensory information and helps us reconstruct a sense of self, meticulously mapping how that self relates to the world in a spatial way. It's what tells you where your body ends and the chair you're sitting on begins. Fascinatingly, research has found that this area of the brain tends to quiet down significantly when people have these profound experiences of oneness or unity. This makes perfect sense. If the very region responsible for creating our sense of a separate physical self and its location in space begins to shut down, then a person naturally loses that distinct sense of self and spatial awareness, merging with the world around them. Perhaps one of the most important aspects of the Enlightenment experience is its permanence. This isn't a fleeting mood or a temporary high, it's a deep structural shift. The experience rearranges the very architecture of our brains, carving new neural pathways that persist for the rest of our lives. One key structure involved is the thalamus, a very central part of the brain. Think of it as a grand central station for all incoming sensory information, directing traffic and deciding what gets our attention. Because of this central role, some believe the thalamus may be the very seat of consciousness. This is an area that appears to be dramatically and permanently changed by these kinds of practices and experiences. If the thalamus changes, it fundamentally alters a person's overall perception of reality. It retunes how they think about it, how they sense it, and ultimately how their brain interacts with the world, establishing a new baseline for being. There is a notion that scientists hold a sterile, clinical, and purely logical view of the world that leaves no room for mystery, awe, magic, or wonder. That in understanding the mechanism, we lose the magic. On the contrary, everything I learn about how the world works tells me it is full of a magic far deeper than I could have imagined. To see the intricate dance of atoms and galaxies is to witness the sublime. It is often said that the more we know about the workings of the universe, the more we realize we do not know. This is the great paradox of discovery. Our growing understanding is like an island in a vast ocean of the unknown. As we expand the island's shoreline, the coast of our ignorance, the boundary with that great ocean, only grows longer. Our knowledge reveals our growing ignorance. I like to think of our collective knowledge of the universe and reality as an island, a solitary outpost of understanding surrounded by a vast, mysterious sea. The solid ground, the interior of this island, represents the well-established science we understand deeply. These are the laws of physics, the principles of biology, the bedrock of mathematics, the things we have tested and confirmed, the land upon which we build our modern world. The shoreline, where the land meets the water, represents the very limits of our current understanding. This is the frontier where our most brilliant minds are working, exploring the nature of consciousness, the mysteries of dark matter, and the deepest questions of quantum mechanics. Beyond this edge lies the great ocean of the unknown. We do not know whether that ocean goes on forever, or if there are other islands of knowledge waiting to be discovered. As our knowledge and understanding grow, the island grows larger. With each discovery, we add a little more land to our world. This allows us to build better boats, telescopes that see further, colliders that probe deeper, and paddle out a little further into the water to explore mysteries we are only beginning to tackle. Yet a curious thing happens. The more our island of knowledge expands, the longer its shoreline of ignorance becomes. We still do not know how much further our understanding needs to go, or whether we will ever fully understand the nature of reality. In a way, that uncertainty is exciting. It's a call to adventure not just for science, but for our own personal understanding. This quest for understanding has a parallel in ancient wisdom traditions. Enlightenment is a very old concept, and it can mean many different things across cultures, from achieving a state of divine bliss to attaining ultimate wisdom. In the Zen tradition, it refers to something very specific, waking up to the truth of what life is. This truth isn't a complex formula, but a simple, profound realization of the interconnectedness of everything, the essential oneness of all things. On one level, the level of our daily experience, everything exists separately. I exist separately from you. This chair is separate from the floor. My thoughts feel like they are mine alone, but at the deepest level, nothing is separate. The air you exhale is the air I inhale. The atoms that make up your body were once forged in distant stars. Everything is completely interconnected and constantly changing, a single, unified process. We are not just observers of the universe, we are the universe experiencing itself. That is awakening to the truth of life. It's not about escaping the world, but about seeing it, and our place in it, with absolute clarity. Shunryu Suzuki, an important Zen teacher who brought these ideas to the United States during the 20th century, was known for saying that there is no such thing as an enlightened person, only enlightened activity. What he meant was that no one becomes finally, fully, and permanently enlightened. It's not a destination you arrive at or a trophy you win. It is not a static state of being. There is only this moment's activity. There is only the choice we make right now. If I do something kind, something that honors my interconnectedness with everyone and everything, that is enlightened activity. It is a moment of clarity, of living in alignment with the truth. If I do something selfish, something that harms the planet, or act from a place of fear and separation, that is unenlightened activity. It is a moment of forgetting, of being lost in the illusion of separateness. So the idea of pursuing enlightenment is not really a self-improvement project. It's not about becoming a better, more special version of yourself. It is about finding ways to be as compassionate as possible in each moment, and to string together as many moments of enlightened activity as possible throughout a lifetime. It's a practice, not a prize. So, whether we look through the lens of science at the expanding edge of our knowledge, or through the lens of ancient wisdom at the nature of our own minds, we arrive at a similar place. A deep appreciation for connection and a recognition that the most meaningful path forward is one of compassion and curiosity. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Your well-being matters. Health is wealth. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.